Welcome to the PARAcast. I'm your host, Tomas the Boss Fernandez, joining you from some room I've never recorded a show in, but here we are. Joining me
At least
tonight.
it's not the black couch.
It's not the black casket. Hello, Jerome. And then I see if I can make $40. Anyways, joining us tonight. He's not allowed to bring magazines into the office ever since the National Geographic incident. It's Robert Wyatt.
Hey, you know what? I didn't realize that when you open it up, they had all those aboriginally type people that are just naked. My bad.
I couldn't help but want to show everybody. It's new cultures. What don't you know about new cultures? And look at the rack on this one. Listen, that's all that was.
I rem- I remember seeing that like when I was a kid. Like you'd be in the school library, you open up the National Geographic because I mean honestly, it's a cool magazine, and you're like, ah,
Well, yeah, like it starts with like tigers and stuff on the covers, and then you get that in there, and then you're just like, what is this smut? What are they trying to peddle? Also, can I look at some classic art just so there might be boobies in there or whatever? Like the weird stuff that happens. you know, the kind of the feed the little boy fix
yeah,
at
yeah.
school. What are you
Well,
gonna
you know
do?
the kids these days they don't have the old J.C. Penney catalog, so you got to
No,
do what you got to do.
no, they have full blown. It's not like every once in a while in a blue moon they would see something. It's just like, oh, they can see anything they want when they want. So
Right?
so they're completely well, and that's the I guess we're kind of like that too. We're like that with the with guns. You used to go into the gun store and they'd have something like, "Oh, this is amazing." Like the whole idea of having like catalogs and all that jazz back in the day, where you would have to like look at a catalog and think, "Oh, I would want this part," and then order that, or like have some gun sent into the gun store, and then you would see it right when it got there. It was just like, no, like now, and you would like basically spend whatever price it was. Like, I mean, there's still a
Yeah.
lot of older people who are like that. Oh, I saw this brand new gun at the gun store and I picked it up and I looked at it and you're like, oh yeah, they're like, it's amazing. And then they're like, oh, it's an XDM. Yeah, okay. And
Yeah.
you're just like, and how much did you pay for that? 800? Yeah, good deal. Good deal, bro.
That's the hardest thing anymore is I go into I mean, like we'll go to Cal Ranch or something like that. The non gun store type places, and the guys behind the counter. I mean, they may as well be out of like
Of
NRA
course.
Weekly or something because I mean, they're like, yeah, I got this XD9 and that's the best gun you ever for concealed carry. And when the flag goes up, the balloon goes up, and you're just like,
Yeah.
I try and like be really cool about it. I'm like, it's funny. The only thing I ever really buy guns for is I'm going to compete with them, and so I don't really get into that world. And then it's like their brain just shuts off. You're like, but Casio carry and NRA forever, and it's just like,
Yeah.
cool
Well,
story, bro.
eventually they hang on to the guns long enough that they become cool again. It's like, oh, that's a Beretta Cougar. That thing's pretty cool. That hasn't been made in freaking 15 years or whatever. But
Yeah, I don't think the XDs are ever going to become cool again.
nope, unless somebody famous gets killed with them. Percana rifle. But
There you go, baby.
that's probably gonna get
Actually,
dismissed.
I this week I started Apple TV on their Apple TV Plus, whatever their Netflix
Yeah.
version kind of thing. They came out with a new series. It's all about the Vietnam War, and so the whole premise is that at one point they had camera crews that were following the soldiers around, and they've actually gone back and found those soldiers now after the war's over,
Yeah.
and so they're kind of talking about the war through their eyes and things like that, and it's really good because there's a lot of like color video. It's all color video pretty much, but you're sitting there and you're seeing these U.S. soldiers, and like they're going into battle. They've got like AK-47s, the M14, obviously the M16. But I'm sitting there watching, and all of a sudden, some dude pokes his head up out of a trench. He's got a Thompson,
Oh
and I'm
yeah.
like, I thought we got rid of those. Apparently not.
Well, a lot of the North Viet not the North Vietnamese, but the South Vietnamese army, like they got a lot of our like World War II, because like when
Hmm.
you ship them over stuff, like you ship them over there, so like M1 Garand saw action, M1 Carbine saw action, Thompson submachine gun saw action in that conflict, Grease gun
Yeah.
saw action, like so there is a bunch of that
Oh
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
that was what was that? The M1 or something like that, I think, because I saw that. It was the stamped version of the
Yeah,
45.
the M3 Grease gun.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
the M3, and then they had like an A1 grease gun too that was out there. But yeah, they had a bunch of that stuff, and it's just like when we shipped off stuff for like Iraq and for like Iraqi police or whatever like that, like we'd ship them a bunch of old M16A2s and a lot of the stuff that we'd have in the inventory that we just didn't use anymore, and so that's what they would get.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, geez, my father fought in Vietnam. I should know more about it, but it's interestingly enough, it's like one of the wars that I know the least about. But I was, I was pleasantly surprised. I actually like rewound and I'm like, yep, sure enough, that's a Thompson.
Yeah. No, it's pretty crazy that stuff that's out there. I this week sat there and pulled out. I'm looking at all the pistols. And I'm like, all right, I want these all in working best order possible. So I pull up the stuff and I got all these spring kits and stuff like that. So I pull up get the Glock, make sure the Glock's set up. So if I want to shoot each one of those in CO, they're properly set up in CO. You know, they're zeroed, they got the grip
Yeah,
tape on, all that jazz. I pull up the Berettas and I'm like, well, what do I want to do with these Brigadiers? And I got this Brig Tac and this 92 Brigadier that I bought last year, and I was like, well, let's just do a trigger job on the Brigadier. So I do a trigger job on the Brigadier, and then I'm like, man, this would be really fun to shoot in prod again because I really loved shooting my Berettas in prod. And so I was like, oh, I could try to do a bunch of dry fire practice for prod and kind of do that. So I'm messing around with that. And so I open up the Brig Tac and I'm like, I respring it, put springs in it, take a look at it, do a trigger job on the regular Brigadier, do that. And then I'm sitting there and I got like these white dot sights on it. I'm in the tub and I go on Amazon. I was like, you know what? I want to buy an adjustable set of rears for one of them. And so I bought an adjustable set of rears. And so I got that adjustable set of rears. Like, well, I want some
off
new
of
grips.
Amazon.
Yeah, so
Really?
Amazon had a bunch of Beretta stuff on there. Said they're Beretta factory
Huh.
adjustable rear sights. And I had a pair of these back in the day, but I can't find them now, so I just put that on there. And then I'm sitting there going, I was like, you know what? This thing would not be too bad just for fun, just to have a red dot mount for it. And so I go over to I type in on Google like Leupold red dot mount um, Leupold Delta Point Pro mount for Beretta 92. And of course, the
Right.
EGW mounts come up, and then the other mount that come up was actually from Leupold, which was Leupold's mount for Berettas. So it's
Loophole
it's
made one just for Beretta.
just for Berettas. So it
Hot
removes the
damn.
rear sight. It has a dovetail that goes in there, and then you put the cap on it, and then screw it into that dovetail, and that will tighten it up. And then it has the hole for the firing pin block that comes up on the Berettas, and it's just made for Delta Point Pro. And so I also have this Vortex Defender ST, and I was just like, okay. And so I'm like looking at the pictures of everyone that has that Delta Point mount on it, and I'm just like, oh, it's the same height as the Beretta factory RDO mount with their RDO plate, not the Langdon one, but
Yeah.
Beretta's quote unquote solution to this. And so I figured like I had one of those before. The height over bore was kind of ridiculous, but like whatever, I can slap one of those on there and try that. So it was like it's pretty fun, just kind of getting everything going. And I watched Niels Jonasson did a video about getting ready for the 2025 season shooting. He's shooting prod, and he's talking about like reloading tips and going through there. And then he's like has like one of the roll sizers from like rollsizers.com, which is like
Hmm.
roll sizing a bunch of brass. And then I started looking up roll sizing. I'm just like, oh, this sounds amazing. Because then like almost your chances of running into brass that doesn't chamber check after you roll size them is like slim to none.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
it's gonna roll size the bottom of that case. And so I was just thinking, it's like, okay, when I get all my reloading stuff set up again, like maybe a roll sizer would be in the works. And so I'm going through that.
I well, I haven't found that the 9 millimeter, like I haven't actually found that the 9 millimeter really needs that.
Yeah.
Like I had a whole bunch of it done. We borrowed Clay's, and I just didn't find that I'm like, oh my gosh, this saved me X, Y, and Z problems. I mean, like I have a good setup, but some of the others that I can see where that roll sizer really, really comes into play is like the 38 Super Dupers
The
and
nine
some of
majors,
those.
if you're shooting nine
Oh yeah.
millimeter
Hmm.
major, roll sizing would be
Yeah,
well,
that's a good point. And so, okay, actually, Tommy, you just made the point. So what you're saying, so I never really pick up rounds off of the USPSA ground. and so I'm never dealing with like 9 major rounds. All the stuff that I get is generally in that once fired stuff from the indoor ranges.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I'm not noticing a ton of value in it.
Yeah, if you're dealing with like as the amount of ammunition, well, two stages of this. When I had the lead load master, the amount of ammunition that would not case gauge
Ugh.
was, three and 100 that would not case gauge because the Lee, for the life of it, couldn't hold a tolerance on jack shit. Like it
Yeah.
just couldn't do it. Since the Dillons, like I had a good flow right there for a while, but now when I get more and more 9 major that pops up, you're just like, okay, this is starting to happen. And the idea of he had a kind of a couple ideas where he talked about maybe shooting like 36,000 rounds probably in major matches and stuff like this. And he's like, okay, so I want to get this all done and loaded. Like he's going to shoot um, factory ammo for practice, and which was nice of Niels to bring up, which was he does not shoot factory ammo in matches. And I think all of us have ran into more problems shooting factory ammo. When it, I run into more problems shooting factory ammo than I run into problems shooting my own ammo that I'm
Right.
sitting there making on the 650. But anyway, he started talking about making the ammunition and then using the same lot number for powder. So finding a piece of powder that he can make 36,000 rounds with, and then making the 36,000 rounds with that after roll sizing.
I had to turn around and look at it. I'm like, I think all of my stuff is all from the same lot.
Yeah, so you're
I mean,
good for
there's something to be said for that. I mean, just God, just the consistency of some of these powders,
yeah.
and from case to from lot to lot. I mean, you're like, why should it ever change? And I've never understood why do they change. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, but you would imagine that not the formula or whatever the mixture or whatever could change over time, and that's kind of what one of the feelings I feel like tight group that I could buy an 8 pound keg of tight group, and
Hmm.
since the age of the coated bullet has slowly started to kind of go away, at least for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, especially when you can get a 115 grain bullet for 5 cents.
yeah, you
I
get
mean, that's
that
like a full metal jacket. It's like, yeah,
four
that's not even that's ridiculous.
4.5 grains of tight group, and you could just load that to the day runs out, and just until that eight
Hmm.
pounds runs out, and you're perfectly fine. So I was just looking at that, and I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And then you see like Niels's Canics, and I was just like, all right, well, let me just for shits and giggles, let me see how much Canics are just for fun. I did not know that you could get steel rivals for $650 now.
That's crazy, isn't it?
You can get them with the optic for like 780.
We'll get it now because I mean, with the way Trump's tariffs are going, I mean, it's probably going to be an extra what $2,500 on top of it or some crazy number.
It'll 25. So they'll be kicking around $900. But the crazy thing is about that is like the stuff that came out of Shot Show with like the new Canic. What is it? Is it their Meta? What's their small one? Their Meta MC9. They have like
Yeah,
a new MC9 that's the 17 round handgun. It's like their
it's their
P365X
version.
macro
Hmm.
with
Yeah,
the V comp. And I just sit there and it's made in the US, and I'm just sitting there looking at that being like, gosh dang. Like I I never thought that like having the gun ship from the factory with the comp and the magwell and then the optics plate, and lots of times with the optics now, it's like that's just standard. And
yeah.
then the people that I want to actually come up with a comp handgun, it's just like, CZ, where's your freaking Shadow 2 comped? Where's your damn P10 comped? Where is the Glock? Like the Glock used to have like the 19C and the 17Cs, the ported guns, and like they haven't brought those back since the Gen 3, and it's just like, where the hell are you guys? Don't tell us that you don't believe in this stuff, because we've seen it.
Well,
You've already made
it's
it.
an well, it's an interesting question to me though, and I think somebody actually asked about this in the show questions, but I mean, you see all these guns that are coming out with comps on them, and there's no doubt that the comps they work. Even on a minor gun, they do actually help. And you have like gargantuan giants like Jeff over on NAS who thinks that you just need a grip harder, but he's the size of the Jolly Green Giant, so his opinion generally is suspect. But you put that in the hands of a regular person or a smaller person, and that comp is going to actually provide some degree of value.
Yeah.
And so I I don't know if it's just that the gun industry is looking at it from the perspective that we need to do something else, and so putting a comp on a gun is just the natural next easy step to do. I mean, hell, Smith and Wesson came out with that abortion of a steel frame gun that the only thing they did was put a longer barrel with a threading on it to put their version of a comp. At least these other companies are putting what looks to be well thought out and integrated compensators or porting
Yeah.
into the guns.
Sight tracker type compensators on the
Yeah.
guns.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's a decent thing to do, having a fixed block of steel at the end of the gun. Or what's funny is like I don't understand like why even now like the sight blocker type stuff hasn't made it out. And like I'm even more kind of like, well, here's kind of the thing. Like I was looking at CZ stuff and like they have their Shadow 2, what do they call it? The Shadow 2 long slide now or
Oh, the
target.
bull shadow.
No, so the 6-inch model.
I
They
thought
came
that's what
out
it was
with they
called.
came with a Shadow 2 with a 6-inch barrel. It was like the Shadow 2 target, and Graffel's sitting there, pimping that thing.
Yeah,
And
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it. If you say it's Target, that probably sounds right.
I
But
think
it's
that's
just for bullseye shooters.
yeah, pretty much. Like it's not there's nothing. I mean, you could shoot it in. I guess if you really wanted to, you could take it and put an optic on it and shoot it in limited optics or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it would be soft enough or whatever to do that. But like, there's no sight tracker models or anything else coming from these companies. It's just weird because you have. Here's the funny thing: it's like there's all this innovation coming out of like three companies that are really pushing it out. Well, four, like Walther's doing it with Parker Mountain Machine. Um, FN's doing it, but like no one's going to buy an FN 509 because FN handguns
Suck.
are they're reliable guns, they're accurate, but the triggers are dog shit. No one wants to use them. And then Sig and Canic. Now, one of those names stands for reliability, quality control, and just a good overall cost per value. And I'll
And it
tell you,
doesn't rhyme with dig.
it doesn't rhyme with dig. And that's like kind of one of those crazy things. Like they have all their freaking innovation that they're bringing out with everything, but they just don't have. I couldn't trust it to save my life, and so like now I'd be like, oh, Canic's got something like that. Cool. If I wanted a gun that would do all that stuff, that's fine. But having
Right.
like a Rival or Rival S just as an optics testing platform now because it damn comes with everything and shooting maybe shooting production for a little bit. Like I'm really excited to shoot production this year. I think after messing around with it a little bit last year, having 15 rounds, I can go out there and shoot and not feel too far behind the CO guys and
Yeah.
really just try to push and have fun with some of the guns I really like to shoot.
It's funny. I can't. I mean, like my favorite iron sight gun right now is my PO7. Which I just absolutely love and adore that gun. But I am having a harder and harder time, and it's not because my eyes are going bad. I mean, I know that becomes a thing, but I'm having a harder time wanting to have any gun that doesn't have an optic on it. And
Yeah.
I never ever like if you had asked me this like 4 years ago, heck, even 2 years ago, if I thought the day would come when all the guns just had to have optics on, I'd be like, "You're up in the night." I never would have thought that I would have gotten to that place. But now I pick up a gun that has iron sights on it, and I'm just like, I sit there and I'm just like squinting. I'm like, "Where's the optic on this damn thing?" It just feels like it needs it.
Well,
What a
my hardest thing is even with a good set of like Dawson's, like my vision has gotten worse over the past 3 years, but it hasn't got terribly bad. Like I'm instead of going from like
right.
2010, I'm like 2013. So like I still have super clean vision. But my thing is like I put so much time in occluding the optic and getting used to being target focused that when I'm looking for actually like when I shoot when I shoot a handgun, like especially an iron sight gun, I want to make sure that that sight picture it looks pretty much as clean as it can possibly look. And that was a lot of front sight, looking at the front sight, focusing on the front sight because that's how I shot irons forever, and that's how I was taught to kind of shoot irons was
Mm-hmm.
front sight, having that target kind of mostly blurry for like some of the precision shots, and of course you just wing it whatever for the close stuff. But it was just like, man, this is this is really weird. This is really weird. But
Oh yeah.
I feel
I actually have to close my eye to do it now,
yeah.
to actually line up, and I've never had to close my eye. And it's obviously it's not like it's the end of the world, but yeah, I've become so accustomed to that target to the target focus. And to be fair, I mean, like Tommy, you're an excellent shooter, and so you can basically draw and just index on probably everything right out to like 15, 20
It,
yards
it's
and be reasonably accurate.
it's been it's been harder, like especially trying to like using that T-Rex Arms shot range day app, using that for a timer
Hmm.
and stuff like that, and doing some dry fire. Like the amount of like bringing it up onto a target like precisionally lined up has been not impossible, but definitely not as sharp when I'm actually pushing for speed like it used to be. Like if
Yeah.
I have like a 70% draw and aim, like I can do it. But if I'm doing like 100% like a grip and try to bring it up like I used to, like try to try to get that shot off in like under point 0.8, like it's definitely starting to become kind of an issue. Um, when it didn't really used to be. I mean, on a dot gun, it's a little bit, if I'm warmed up to the dot gun, then I can do it. But if it's like a different height over bore or whatever like that, like if you're messing around with something new, it's definitely kind of weird. But yeah, I was kind of looking at just guns that I was like, well, I could get one of these and maybe screw around with it in production, see if I like it, like Shadow 2s, or they have the PO9 Nocturnes, which seem to be a product improvement, except for people who can't figure out how to install the optic screws onto the damn gun, and that's the fault of CZ. You cannot put screws that are long enough to sit inside the extractor well. That causes problems.
I just have an issue with the fact that I could put an SRO on the O7, but I can't put an SRO on the Nocturne because they
Yeah,
went to the RMRS, what do they
R
call it?
RMS,
RMRSC?
yeah, RMSC,
Yeah, something like
and
that.
like there's decent optics for that footprint, like the Holosun EPS and stuff like that, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
even the Shield Arms optics. You can get decent competition optics for those things. But yeah, it is frustrating, but I think everybody's kind of learning that direct mill, like even the major manufacturers are learning that direct mill is the way.
Oh,
509
100%.
509 has a couple little modular little plates, but they're not actually plates. They're being threaded into the screws. I mean, the screws are being threaded into the slide. The new CZs like that. The Echelons like that. The Prodigy went to an AOS system. Like, I mean, and Glock is now teamed up with Aimpoint for that COS optic, that gun's a direct
Right.
mill gun. Like direct
Did
mill,
when you buy that gun, I I didn't really understand their marketing. When you buy the gun, are you buying it with the optic? Like it's an all-in-one package
it's an
or
all-in-one package,
okay.
zeroed. So it's an all-in-one package, zeroed. And that COA optic is interesting because the way that it mates in, so it basically has to slide in from the side, and then the rear sight has the two screws that screw it into the side. So it's dovetailed, it slides in. And like I was looking at that and I was like, okay, well, if it's like one of the smaller optics, like I don't particularly care. But the interesting is it's the same window size as the Aimpoint Acros and like the
Mhm.
Steiner MPS, which I freaking loved. I think they're great optics. So it's the same window size. They shaved the outer housing. And so you have a more minimal housing around the optic for the same window size and a 3.5 MOA dot, and it's a aim point dot or whatever. So that's that's
That's
pretty
great.
cool. Like if it's $900 and then you have a gun that's directly mounted, that is an enclosed optic. I think that's the way to go. Like a PO9 Nocturne full size, or even the Nocturne, the O9C, like you put like an EPS on that thing and have an enclosed optic EPS, if you already have an EPS, for like $450, you put that on the gun. Like I think there's a lot of good options. Echelon, all these kind of guns. I think the plate movement is kind of going away, and like even guns like the M&P, plastic plate directly threaded into the gun. But I think more and more companies are going to go, this is the optic that we've chosen to go on to our slide because it probably matches their pattern the best, and they want to see less probably RMAs. I can't imagine the amount of um, RMAs that come into Glock or something like that from MOS problems. And like
That's actually an interesting question though, is if you buy that Glock and the optic fails, do you send it to Glock or do you send it to Aimpoint?
my guess is that you'd probably send it to Glock. That's who you're buying the gun from,
Yeah. I mean
and
it
so
makes sense, but
Yeah, I mean,
Huh.
if you get to send that in there and have them deal with it, that's fine. But it would be nice to see. I I think everybody would be happy with CZ. Like you would be happy with CZ if CZ just said, "This is the footprint we're coming out with on the Shadow 2. We're not doing plates anymore." And then you could be like, "Okay, if I want the direct mill or whatever," or you could do like an RMSC to SRO plate or whatever like that. But
Right.
I think if they kind of came out with their one optic, then everyone would kind of know for I need two of these optics now on the gun. That's what I'm shooting, and that's what the factory says will run, and that's the best thing for the dang gun.
Right. And it also is worth saying that like people like us are a fraction of a fraction of a percent of the public who are actually going to be buying these guns. And so our opinion, while it has some weight, doesn't come close to what your average viewing public is going to, because they're going to walk into the store and at the local Chills or whatever, and they're going to see a Glock and it's going to have an aim point. There are two names that they know, and they don't have like this like long history of experience using an aim point or an SRO or a Delta point, whatever,
Yeah,
to say like, oh, this SRO is just the tits for competition, but I wouldn't use it for this.
yeah,
They're going to look at it and be like, I can buy the gun and the optic, and I can walk out of here today, and it's already mounted. Here's my credit card.
yeah. Well, and there's another company that does that for guns, and they sell you a gun with a great brand name, and then they give you an optic that has the same brand name. That's like the Sig guns,
That Yeah.
the Sig P320 line. Like they bring you out a
I thought you said it
P320.
was a great company.
Well, they trade on their name. I didn't say that the name was worth a damn anymore. I just said they traded on their name. But like the
Canik has their oh God, what does they call that
the
new optic,
the
the mate
mechanic,
mechanic?
yeah, the mechanic optics or whatever like that. Yeah,
I understand that's actually a really good optic, and it comes in a good size. And if it comes on a Canik, I I have nothing bad to say about Canik. It used to be where I'd tell people just go buy a Glock. I can't honestly look somebody in the eye and tell them that that Glock is so much better than a Canik, because right now if you buy a Canik, you get a gun that's like optics ready, and for righties, for right-handed people,
not
it's going to come with the paddle and or has the holster, the magazines, everything you need.
if you get a right. The stupid thing about the rival is like the polymer frame rival or the steel frame rival. It's like you get a gun that's legal for almost every single USPSA division, almost every single IDPA division, and also comes with the parts from the factory. It comes
Yeah.
with four plates. It comes with adjustable irons. It meets weight for the IDPA division. It comes with a magwell, and it comes with 20 round magazines. And like, so if like that gun and five magazines, you're freaking set for life. I mean,
Yeah.
you could upgrade the holster, but like some ghost pouches and a decent holster for that thing if you don't want to run the one that they get, like you're set. And like I liked mine. I just didn't want to take the time to sit there and learn a new recoil pattern out of a 43-ounce gun because every time I returned the gun would return low because I was putting polymer frame input into the gun to return the gun. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
every time the gun returns low, I was just like, well, son of a like, I'll just go shoot. It's easier for me to sell this today and grab the lighter gun. And that's when I was sitting there watching that Niels video. I go pull like try to look up the polymer frame rifles, and I was like, a polymer frame rifle wouldn't be that bad to just have a gun that I can kind of optics plate around because that's the kind of like I think everybody should have a gun that's optics plate. It's an optics plate system because you buy
Yeah.
this dot, you can try that dot, you can put it on there, and you can test bed the gun back and forth. And like honestly, if you have just that canic in a box somewhere and your gun goes down or your optic goes down, you can literally pull that gun out of the case, configure it for the division you are about to shoot, take the holster that's off the case, slap it on your hanger, and if you're running like ghost pouches, the magazines are fine, or if a CZ pattern gun, and like put that on there. And so like
Mm-hmm.
it is a like if you can't afford to deck out two Shadow 2s, you can probably deck out a Shadow 2 and have a mechanic in the case,
Oh yeah.
and then
Oh yeah.
just run with it. But like all my stuff's direct milled, so I was looking at that. I was like, that wouldn't be a bad optics platform to kind of have bounce a bunch of stuff off of. So
I think the Canik is just a wonderfully superior gun. Nils Jonasson was arguably probably the best thing that happened to that company.
Yeah.
because I mean he knows what he's talking about. He gives really good input, and he shoots the hell out of the guns. It's just what a fantastic company, and
Yep.
yeah, I love him.
Yep. No, it's great. What did you do, Robert?
I did a couple things this week. I so earlier in the week, I actually drove down and I picked up all of the bullets and projectiles and primers and everything from the guy who was selling them off, and it felt like it started to like bottom out the shocks on the truck, but it wasn't that bad. But yeah, it was like $6,300 something dollars later, but 43,000 primers, 19,000. That's a 19,000 40 Smith and Wesson. Just tons and
Yeah.
tons of freaking stuff. The bullets were the thing that I was surprised about because he's selling these bullets for 5 cents a piece, but they're Full Metal Jacket bullets. They're basically Spear by another name.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty damn
No,
good.
that's awesome.
And he's got a bunch of Gen X, and so this was really interesting. He was telling me that during the pandemic, when you couldn't find anything, Winchester was actually buying Gen X primers and putting them into things. That may be why some people were having trouble with
Ha
them.
Having bad ammo problems. Yeah, I would not doubt like Winchester would have like their forged line or whatever their steel case line, and like
Yeah,
I I I do not doubt that they would source some of their primers or other products out to fill those things. Because like
yeah,
why would you use your quality source when you can sit there and probably buy another primer for a penny cheaper to go put in the
right.
ammunition? But yeah, that's yeah. Factory
Interesting.
ammo. Factory ammo is about them making money, not about your match going any better.
So here's the bigger interesting thing that I when talking to him that I found is so Gen X had a couple different lines, and so they had their initial stuff that a lot of people had trouble with, but apparently their newer stuff is actually a lot more reliable. And so he said when he because he's got to get all of the million three uh, Gen X primers back to his house, but I think I'm actually going to go buy a thousand of them from him just to see
Yeah.
because I'm genuinely curious at this point um, if they're actually any better. And the fact that I'm shooting like hammer guns, I mean, a hammer's a light damn near anything under the sun off. So I've got that going for me, and plus I have my Andy's going to scream into the sky at this point, but my not drop safe shadow too with the extended firing pins. But that'll probably be just fine. I'm genuinely curious because if I can get Gen X reliability at that price point,
Yeah, why
I
not?
don't give a flying crap. I'll absolutely shoot him. I just had bad luck with him years ago.
Yep.
But then what was else? So I've been meaning to do this since the beginning of the year, but I finally actually got my automated press switched over, and now it's processing all that 223. And my goal
Automated Mark 7 processing.
that's pretty much what I'm looking for at this point. But my goal right now is just to get all of that 223 because I've got 25 gallons of 223 brass. That's too much. I
Yeah.
mean, like I just don't shoot enough of it. So I had this thought that if I go through and I, size, trim, swage, all that stuff, I could sell off like what because it's 5 gallon buckets. So I could sell off the four of them, take that money, and then talking to Nate, like maybe get like a Mark 7 and
Yeah.
get like a really good reloading press, and then just sell off my other presses and things like that. It's a random thought that I have burning a hole in my head, but I've been in the process of loading up all the bullets that I'm going to shoot for the year, and I was just like, it would be so nice just to like not even just have one of those really new fancy systems and just let them do everything. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reloading systems or whatever, like the automated systems, I think they all sound good until like once you get them set up and going. But like, and you're already into the 1050 or the 1150. For me, it's just like, for me, all I need is a case prep system that is that is easy. Like I just
Right.
like I would love to dry tumble because it's so easy to sit there and go through like, but I don't want to deal with it, especially if I'm reloading inside. wet tumbling so much more cleaner. It gives you a better product. But like honestly, like I the reloading's not the problem. The case prep is the problem for me. As long as I can get maximum
Yeah.
case prep done efficiently and easily, I don't care if I'm on a 650 or a 1050 or 1150 or whatever like that, because that pulling the handle time is easy. And like for anyone starting reloading, it's like if you have a 550, if you have a 650, 20 primer tubes, 20 primer tubes and a way to get those primer tubes loaded, like Double Alpha has a bunch of new priming tube system loaders, and if they are reliable, that's really good. But nowadays, we don't want to spend 8 cents on a flipped over backwards primer. Like that just drives me insane nowadays. But like just being able to have whatever my session's going to be, having that all in primers, having that all in brass that's cleaned, nothing to worry about. Like that's what I want. Like I just want to be able to sit there and take 5,000 rounds of 9mm, 5,000 casings, get that cleaned, put that away, be able to load,
Hmm.
2,000 rounds at a time, and just being able to do that. Like bullet feeder, Dylan's bullet feeder, like
That is cool.
that
That
is
thing's sick.
that is cool. Like bullet feeding, it doesn't seem like that much, but how much time that you waste putting that bullet on that head, and like if it will do that, like that's great too. Like I just like all that stuff, I just want to put it in piles and then do it, and the Mark 7 seems like it can do that, but it still seems like something I have to watch, because I feel like if you don't watch it and it messes up, you're going to be spending time on that.
A lot of the newer systems, they have a lot of God, what do you call it? Just cameras
Yeah.
that will stop it if something goes awry. But I think the big advantage that you get with the Mark Sevens and these new ones is they're so much more consistent as they do the rotation, that you don't seem to have the just that jarring effect which causes so much of the problem. But you're absolutely right. With the 650 that I have here, I will take all of the 223 that I've done and I'll actually load it on that, because all of the other prep for rifle is just done. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody who's ever reloaded rifle will all say the same thing. Reloading it is easy. It's the case prep involved that just sucks.
Yeah.
And it makes it to the point of like I don't even want to do it. That's why for the longest time I was just buying it, because I dreaded the idea of having to actually case prep all that crap.
Case prepping, like the cleaning or whatever, like the idea of lubing it, knocking the primer out to and then to clean it, and then after it's clean, then you're able to process it. Like I bought myself one of the Franklin Arsenal case prep stations for 223, and
Hmm.
swaging it sucks. Reaming it is a lot better. For the brass to sit there and just put it on there and just ream out the back end, but you're still taking all that time. Trim, chamfer, deburr, ream, and chamfer and deburr, is it needed? Like I think it helps. It definitely helps in the
On a
loading by
on a
setting the bullet on
55
there.
grain bullet on a 55 grain bullet, um, I don't find for the distances you're going to shoot a 55 grain bullet in our kind of world, it doesn't have the best return on investment. But I've found the heavier bullets really notice it. Now, I'm not a super big rifle shooter, so take everything I say with a huge grain of salt, but that's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I mean, I talked to heck, I would probably talk to Adam Reiser, Eric Sayo, because they do this all the time. But I just I don't put a ton of time into the chamfer and deburr. Plus, because I'll go through and I'll do all that prep, and then I'll throw it in a dry tumbler to basically scrape off
Yeah.
the lube, and that has a way of actually kind of deburring it on its own, which is not bad.
No, it's not bad. Like I'd steel case, steel tumble media it, and then sort it out or whatever, and that would scrape off that water, gunk, and all that stuff. Like do the case lube. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
rifles a pain in the ass. But everyone's got to load it now. Hopefully, when Ukraine ends, there will be all this cheap ammo and surplus arms on the market. That would be fantastic. I could really use a CZ Bren too.
Yeah, you and me both.
If you would like a CZ Bren too, well, go spend the $1,600, but you know it's a lot cheaper? A Dominate Defense belt. Head over to Dominate Defense or American Operator Gear and get the best belts in the industry. They're fantastic. Use promo code PARA10, save 10% off your order. That's American Operator Gear and Dominate Defense. Literally the best belts. Copied by so many, but the originals. That's what you want to go to. Also, check out W74 Guide Rods if you want to get a cheap Canic. Kevin's your man. Shot him for years. Knows how to do everything for him. He's got guide rods for that gun and plenty of other guns and tungsten batteries and everything that you need to get your gun tuned up the way that you need and get it really, really heavy. So check him out, W74 Guide Rods. Use promo code PARA10 and save 10% off your order. And Rune Tactical +1 in the gun. Stuff them up. Springs, followers, what you need for your gun to get that 23rd or 24th round into that bad boy so you can be 24 plus 5 like Robert on a good day and then go to war with a piece of steel and have to reload. So do all
No,
that.
it started to be a good day, and then it quickly like nosedived.
Nosedive. Yeah. Yeah, well, I thought I had enough rounds, except for that piece of steel I took 4 shots at. So check it out, W74.
That is seriously the worst part about going from production into a high cap division, and that's when you know you've really just you're fully in the high cap. Is that when you actually forget about that and run out of bullets?
Yeah.
Because they're like when we first started, if we were not shooting and we were moving, we were reloading.
Well, you got 2
That's
steps.
how it worked.
You got 2 steps. New mag to be in that gun.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the reloading game definitely has taken I've noticed a drop in my reloading game. The one thing that I watched I forgot to talk about. Oh, sorry. Rune Tactical. Promo code PRA10. The one thing that I watched this video that this shooter did about this Eric Graffel class he took down in Florida. And I was watching this video and I was like, you just see Graffel talk about like being a sniper, like collecting all the points possible and then like sprinting to the next stage. And I was just like, oh yeah, like that would be advantageous for me to try to get as many points as I can, like quickly, still like trying to split the trigger, but being accountable and getting all those shots. And I was just watching some more match video of Graffel the past couple weeks, and I was just like, it is amazing. He does not look like he's tearing it up, or Lockwood and Graffel look like 2 different shooters, and one of them looks better than the other one, but the other one is way better.
Yeah.
Yet, it's just
And that's
crazy.
not bagging on Lockwood. I mean,
No, it's not bagging on Lockwood. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's
That was the thing I took when we shot nationals, and I got to be on his squad. I mean, he doesn't look fast.
yeah.
I mean, it looks like he's just going around in like 3rd gear, and if he wanted to, he could drop another gear in there if he wanted to, but he doesn't seem fast. But he gobbles up the points like it's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep. And so like that's kind of the thing. It's just like okay, and like I was just watching him do some stuff with irons, and it's just like okay, like watching him and Niels do like their prep for like a season or whatever. It's just like okay, I'm gonna get some adjustable sights on this Beretta. I'm gonna get these sights exactly where I want to hit, and I'm gonna put them in a position like to shoot to the dot instead of at the
Right.
top of the sights. Like I'm
Mhm.
gonna kind of foolproof a little system for myself to sit there and go through that. So that's what I'm excited to do. So
That'd be fun. That should
awesome.
be interesting.
Telegram, it's a messaging app. Download it, search Paracast or Paracast Pod, and you can find us. Join the chat. You can ask us questions, and we'll do our best to answer them.
From our good friend Ron Davison. Hey Tommy, what are the DEI hires like at UPS?
Dude, I'll tell you how this got. It used to be a bunch of like white middle class guys, who wanted a job through college and realized it was going to pay way more than college ever was. So there's a few of us, and we've gone. And then there's all the Samoan guys, because the LDS community has a bunch of like Tongan and Samoan people who come over. And then
We
so like
import them for football.
we do, we import them for football and for tithing. And so what happens is they come in, and then like apparently they all have cousins and they have really good familial ties. And so then like all their cousins get a job there. And then like there's like Hispanics and stuff like that, but like we just need bodies. Like for the past 5 years, we have just needed bodies. Like please be warm. And so like COVID was the best time because like there was people who had no right passing who did pass who got to stay on. And like we've gotten rid of a few of those guys over the years, but like it is literally it is a hodgepodge right now. And so our diversity, equity, and inclusion just means warm bodies who can take a box to the door. And so it turns out, and like I'm very popular with all the Samoan and Tongan people. I feel like if I got in a gang fight, it'd be one of those things where like, well, how about you mess with my crew? And then a bunch of guys who look like they're all the like lightest guys, 260 pounds, come out. That's the best. It's the best.
From Dirk Hopkins, let's talk about the stupid NROI director. We could, although
What did I see the clip on where like he was asked to be in a board meeting for a special thing, and then he was just like talking to Jim, saying Jim wasn't his boss and he doesn't have to be there. What the hell was that stuff that I was seeing?
all right. So here I'm going to read. I'm going to read the thing that George actually put in here because it actually applies. But from my good buddy George, he said, "Greetings from the fun gun-free Japan. My impression is that the current Area 2 director is a litigious, maybe slightly nasty fellow. Kind of a case of be careful what you wish for, and he wanted to get rid of his predecessor, trying to push a bunch of poorly formed reforms in the bylaws, sounding like a petulant child when he doesn't get his way. What are your thoughts on that?" Well, so the board of directors had their first meeting of the year with the new area directors. That was what Leif Kunkel and God damn it, what's his name? John Bird, who's the Area 2 director. And in the meeting, John Burt, he he immediately proposes a motion to remove Troy McManus's DNROI. At which point, the board is like, "Yeah, we can't talk about that." So they immediately go into executive session, and then they come out and they basically ruled his motion out of order, but they come out and they say, and he files a new motion saying that USPSA wants to search for a new DNROI. Effectively, read between the lines, they're going to fire Troy.
Yeah.
Later on, and Troy didn't know about any of this. So he was basically caught blindside in the middle in the board meeting with the board member trying to get him fired. And so they all vote on it, and they say yes, we'll search for a new director. The Area 7 director, he abstained, and the Area 7 director abstained, and Russell Fortney of 8, he voted no. I think that's how the vote all went. But then later on, there was a conversation about this retreat that they are having this weekend. It probably is wrapped up by now, but they have this, and Troy makes this comment. Well, Troy basically makes this comment about going into executive session, and then the Area 2 director kind of yells at him, saying, you're a guest here, you don't get to talk. And so that all happened, and it's a really interesting situation right now because I don't particularly like Troy as DNRI. I think he's been there too long. I think he's made enough missteps and problems that arguably he should be removed. And yet, the way that Burt went about filing for this motion and going after Troy, he also went after Alan, who's the managing director. And when you listen to him, and you can actually go to the USPSA website and watch the board meeting now. That's one of the new things that they did, is you can actually see the board meeting if you want to. But the way that he did it was just objectively, it was just horribly performative. If you've ever watched like Senate confirmation hearings and things like that, you'll have the one side of the aisle that is all jazzed up about this guy, but then the other side that is basically just coming off as a bunch of shrieking harpies, and they don't actually care about it.
Onesie? Do you
Yeah,
approve
they
this
just
onesie? Yeah.
yeah, they just want to make it seem like, they're going to get you, and they just want to sound loud and like powerful. And watching John Burt go after the employees of the organization, whether you like Troy McManus or not, was probably one of the lowest moments I have seen the USPSA board of directors do in a long time. And I'm not even trying to defend Troy's position. I just, like, in my business, I will never, like, ever, if we have a problem and it was something that one of my guys did, and the owner comes to us and says this is a problem, I will never say, well, you know what, that was actually Davis's fault and Davis did this because Davis is a bad guy, and I won't drag Davis out there and in front of like all of the client just sit there and just berate Davis, because that's unprofessional. And it's
Yeah.
certainly not how you run a business. I mean, if anything, like, I tell them, like, look, this is what we've always done. If there's a problem, like, I'm going to solve it. I'm sorry, this is the problem, and I'll solve it. And that's just how it is.
Yeah, so it's
And
just a
to watch them do that was just so freaking unbecoming. I was beyond pissed about it. And
well,
I don't like Troy.
well, and that's it. So it's like more of a political stunt than anything else. So Ben Berry second,
100%.
yeah, Ben Berry seconded the motion, and then you had the was it Rizzy abstained,
Rizzy abstained.
yeah, and I had the minutes up here
Yeah,
a
Rizzy
second ago.
abstained
So
and
Jim
Russell said
Boone,
no.
yeah, and Boone, our director, said no on it. So like, yeah, it's just kind of, yeah, it's I don't know.
It look did like
Just
take like just
if you're
for
gonna
a moment.
fire him, and then
Yeah,
start a search for a replacement, but don't have the conversation in front of don't drag the company dirt out in front of everybody. Like, at
and
least
that's
handle it in a
exactly it.
professional manner.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, remove kind of the lightning rod that has been Troy McManus, because I mean I'm very open about my feelings about him, but remove him and put anybody else in that position, and no employee ever deserves to be treated that way in a public setting by a company, ever.
Yeah, yeah.
And that just, it just ruined everything,
Well,
like,
don't
so
open
much of like
yourself
the
up.
good feelings I had for them.
Don't open yourself up to a freaking lawsuit.
Yeah. And God, it bothered me. It just, it bothers me that it put me in a position where I'm defending Troy, because I'm not inclined to want to do that, but I couldn't believe that that's exactly what we did. But so, on that note, I mean, if anybody wants to be DNOI, they're taking applications. It's $120,000 a year, and you can have everybody in the world hate your guts for everything you do.
Solid. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. I
Bring
mean,
back bring
I would happily apply to be DNROI, but my understanding is that they really like their multi-page rule book, and Robert's rule book is just a little on the tad too short side. So I don't think they're gonna take me.
Yeah, they probably won't. You don't want the pay
Uh,
cut anyway.
yeah. So let's see. From Jamie, are you as excited about this as my 18-year-old son? He's making a list of things to buy. So, a federal appeals court ruled that it is against federal law, ruled against federal law requiring young adults to be 21 to buy handguns, finding that it violated the Second Amendment. Yeah, I'm so in favor of that.
Yeah. What does a young man get? What does he get? Hmm. I think you go big. I think you go unsafe, you go big, you get a Shadow 2 compact.
Hell yeah.
That's the way to roll. You get a little USPSA
Your
action.
first gun needs to be a DASA that you torch off while trying to stuff it in your pants.
Yeah, I mean, definitely no appendix holes. You want to carry that bad boy strong side inside the
Yeah.
waistband, but like, I think that's the way to go. Who needs a
You think
firing pin block?
fire, fire and pin blocks are for people? I mean, hell, Sig already proved the fire and pin blocks don't work anyway.
Everybody needs a firing pin block except for SIG, because if you have a firing pin block, they don't want to replace it every 3,000 rounds when you snap the roll pin. So
Exactly.
that's why they went with the Shadow 2. They're like, listen, these guys are actually going to practice. We don't want to have the freaking RMAs, so just delete that part. Delete it out.
It's just overrated. But then again, you have Staccato, who just came out with the HD4.
Yeah, because they got
that
to
has
get
a firing pin
contracts.
block in it.
They got to get contracts. They get like if CZ wasn't making a heap of money on all that on the Shadow 2, they'd probably put if they were actually trying to sell that gun to agencies, but all the guns that they do sell to agencies have the firing pin block. And I was hoping I haven't seen somebody strip down a Nocturne, but I would hope that a Nocturne wasn't like the PO7s and the PO9s where those would actually snap.
Wait, what's snapping?
The retaining pin for the firing pin block, don't those always just kind of snap the more you dry fire them? It's kind of like the XD, those things would just snap inside
Huh.
and you'd have to replace them.
Oh, I'm not saying you're wrong. I've not experienced it in my case.
Yeah,
Admittedly, I'm not putting the amount of dry fire on it like I would my Shadow 2s, but
yeah,
I haven't experienced it yet. That I would take you at your word. I didn't know that.
yeah. I would happily kind of screw around with one of those guns if I knew I could not snap anything in there. I don't
Yeah.
want to have to replace roll pins. I hate
The
roll
be-
pins.
the best thing you can do on, and I don't actually have the gun in this room, but you can actually buy a, because you have the roll pin that goes through on the CZs, like the SPO ones and probably the Nocturnes. It's an actual roll pin. The problem is, as you're dry firing, that roll pin will eventually shatter,
Yeah,
and so it'll leave crap into it, and it just doesn't work. But CZ Custom actually sells a solid roll pin, and that thing ain't breaking for nothing.
yeah. It's
Admittedly,
just a
your
pin.
firing pin would
Yeah,
probably break first,
yeah.
and so that's what I've actually, all of my firing pin block guns in CZs, they've all just gotten that put in there because I think it just works better.
Yeah. They'll break a firing pin like a Beretta. Like half the time I open up my Berettas, they're broken firing pins.
Yeah, but the Berettas actually still work.
Yeah.
Unlike the CZ or unlike the SIG. Just saying, SIG sucks. From Alex Mansfield, what are your thoughts on the proposed classification system changes brought forth by the committee?
So I was pulling and looking these up. I was looking for the motions on them to see what the actual change were. I did see some stuff about like limited 10. What were
Well,
they?
so what they were, so limited 10 is provisional or whatever, but the classifier committee um, is really interesting, and I'm not even going to begin to try and understand to explain it because I read the papers on it, and it sorry about that. I read the papers on it, and they're using this algorithm and stuff. Actually, Stepan is involved in it, and he does like the hitfactor.info stuff. And they're kind of re-looking at how the classifiers and the high hit factor are all created, in doing so in a way that's going to actually give you a more realistic classification. I don't understand it. It uses a lot of big math things that I'm just stupid about, but it looks, I mean, just reading the way they're kind of describing it, it sounds like it's the direction we want to go because it's taking it out of the hands of an individual and instead putting actual data behind it, like numbers and stuff like that. And the people who are on the committee are all like real smart computer talking guys, and I think that's kind of awesome. I mean, that's the direction we want to go. Let's get a classification system that actually represents what we're really doing.
Division specific provisional capability and classification system. Okay. It's not allowed for division specific provisional status. Okay. I was just looking through some of this stuff. All right. Like if it's gonna spit out something that's actually if it's gonna prevent shot outs situations and from classifiers being just completely unobtainable or something like that, then like cool.
Yeah,
Cool. If
and
it's gonna fix it,
they
fine.
said that they gave some dots and data saying that the 23 and the 24 series were just, they were unfortunately poorly thought through, and they had problems from the get go. I I feel the way I see it, if in the process of everything they're doing here, they figure out a way to stop the gamification of the classification system, then everybody wins
Yeah.
because it stops reshoot madness, and that's a good thing because then it actually shows you who you are. Because at the end of the day, we shoot our classification at a major match every single time, And so
I
I I'm excited to see what they come up with. I really am.
I mean, honestly, like the perfect scenario would be is if the board told you to reshoot the pad told you to reshoot it. Like if it had your stuff on there and you went out there and you shot it and it said you are 56%, you are in this class, you are like going to take a reshoot to reshoot it just so you
That could
could
be interesting.
yeah, so it'd be like no, you have to reshoot it. Like this is 20% below or 15% below what your current classification is. Please reshoot again. You have another problem, then it can just be like, all right, then that's what it's going to count. But if the board literally tells you you have to reshoot the stage again because you failed to hit the parameters of what your actual skill level, it says your skill level should be, after it has, some data on you already, that would be kind of interesting because then it would still allow for reshoots but it wouldn't be shooter driven reshoots.
Right. It'd be interesting. I think Leah Grandis probably has the best concept where all of your matches, majors and locals, all kind of combine and work towards a system that gives you what your actual true classification is.
Yep.
I mean, it would certainly stop. Well, you're never going to stop it, but I mean, maybe it slows down this idea of people going up to the classifier stage and being like, "Oh, I always do bad on a classifier." No, you don't. You think too much about it.
Yeah. And it's definitely going to, I mean, the classifier system does allow people to make a name for themselves by reshooting the classifiers.
Yeah, yeah. From Eric Mealander, the Humble Marksman reported the SHOT Show had a significant trend of compensators. How do you think shooting organizations should address them into competition beyond an open division?
Limited optics. I think,
Allow comps in limited optics?
yeah, I think you leave carry optics as stock as possible and just allow them in limited optics. I think that's kind of the best way, or you could redefine, make a different hit factor exemption for compensators on slide righted 9 millimeter minor guns. I mean, if you allowed a major and a minor and gave them kind of tweak the system in open for a little bit for them, you could do something there. I think that's probably going to be like um,
I
non-removable compensators and slide right optics. Couldn't have let them have their big stick or whatever their 26, 27 round guns, and then like limit the major guys to like a smaller magazine capacity is I think the best that you could do without creating another division. But I think if you're gonna squeeze them in somewhere, I mean, open and limited optics is probably the best way that they're gonna go.
I wonder. There's a part of me that wonders if the compensators are a bit of a fashion trend,
They are.
and that it's just going to go away in a couple of years when other industry. Um, I have that wonder, and you say they are, so I would I would believe that. And if that's the case, then USPSA kind of doesn't really need to do anything. However, IDPA has actually made a point of embracing compensators in I think their CCW uh,
In carry optics,
division, carry
in carry
optics
optics
division.
they allow them. So
And so
yeah,
they're saying that so one of two things, and maybe both could be true. Maybe Wilson Combat came out with a compensator and they want to put it somewhere, or they're just recognizing that some of these smaller guns in some metric do actually benefit from a bit of compensation.
yep,
I know that Sig Macro X whatever. Um, I always talk about it. I mean, it's a ported or comped gun, but it really does actually make that gun very easily shootable for people who aren't the Jolly Green Giant.
yeah. They do something. I mean, there's a lot of porting going on there, and like I think the factories are going to factories are looking at the aftermarket, and they are essentially trying to strip out and gut out the aftermarket. That's all that they're doing. That's what they've been
Yeah.
doing for optics. You have your optic line that comes out from your manufacturer. They're trying to produce their own plates. They're trying to produce their own extended magazines. They're producing their own compensators to go on the guns, because if you're going to go out there and spend an extra $300 on the compensator, why not get ours that's factory installed on the gun or part of the slide or whatever. And there's a
Hmm.
lot of that stuff that actually works and is pretty cool, and it should be on the guns, but I don't think it's going to be something that we look back and go like, oh, every gun now is going to have some sort of port or comp. They are louder. They do remove some ability for you to do something else with that gun later for like suppression or something else. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Shoot, I never thought of that.
yeah, like it hides the ability for them to be compensated
Huh.
and sorry, not compensated, but suppressed and have all that stuff done. And so like regular barrels aren't going to go away, but there's a part of this that I think could be allowed in because you're going to see more and more factories do that, like the Walther PDPs that have the built-in Parker Mountain machine comp on them. You know, you can get that gun for like $850. You know, pretty
Right.
crazy. The polymer frame. They'll probably have a steel frame one. Canik already has their Rival S, their TTI Rival S with the comps on them. So you'll see a lot of those guns have them, and you know we're gonna try to find a home for them. I just hope that home's open or do something with those divisions, then allow them into a new division because we are division stacked.
Oh yeah, very much so. I see a lot of people that show up at the new shooter match, and they've got that new staccato comp
The
gun.
XC.
Yeah, and they just shoot it in open, and even the ones that are showing up at the regular matches with that gun, they don't care. They're shooting open, and they're there to. I mean, to the extent that you have some of the high end guys who are like, I want to have a special carve out division just for my minor open gun. Um, I don't know. I'm willing to have a conversation about it. I don't. I there's a part of me that really does kind of think that this is a bit of a flash in the pan, but who knows? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
happy to see that IPA actually decided to open it up in that division.
Yeah. I mean, like, hopefully the answer is everyone who has one of those just decides to come shoot a match, and they all move to open, and open slowly becomes a 38 super or a
Mm-hmm.
38 super comp or 9mm major and starts working there. I think we're not too far away from those companies not willing to be making those guns.
Yeah.
So why should I make this gun for the I'm going to be competing with the same 1,000 customers who are into shooting open and into shooting that, or do I want to compete with the other 7 million customers who are going to buy a 9mm 1911 2011 style handgun that's compensated? And
Right.
I think the market will just kind of phase those out.
Yeah. From Dred Scott, probably too late, but what are the opinions on buying matched jerseys? They seem a little try hard, but I also feel like I'm too judgmental, and having souvenir from the match might be okay. I'm going to my first match with one and trying to decide. So I can speak to this. I actually really like if they offer like a jersey for the match or whatever. I really like getting them. I think they're fun, and it really does come down. It really does come back to like this becomes a bit of a memory to the match that I shot, and so every time I pull out the match jersey from when I shot the Tennessee match, I kind of think about that a little bit. And that's me. I kind of that's my little bit of sentimentality to the match. So I've actually started to really enjoy, especially because a lot of these matches are now doing the actual jersey kind of
Yeah,
matches, not just
tech
a cotton
tech wear
T-shirt
sort,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
kind
Yeah,
of thing.
and so I can take those out to our regular matches, and I can wear them and have a great time. I have no problem in the world if you want to buy a match shirt. I
Match
think they're
jersey,
fun.
match shirts, fantastic. I think the age of the actual showing up with a jersey has slowly started to fall off and go away. I don't think the amount of like T Rex kind of guys who are showing up now and shooting matches are showing up to wear jerseys. Like I've seen a lot less jersey wearing at matches nowadays, and I think that's well, I think it's happier for the self image of everybody around, and I think um, there's a correlation between buying a jersey and burning out. I think I
There's a lot of truth to
I
that.
I think people who kind of like it would drive me kind of nuts. Like you'd go to like IDPA matches and like people would take these jerseys and they would put whatever logos, and it's just like, well, you're not actually sponsored by these people. You just shoot their product or use their product. But like there was a lot of that, and it I think there is a lot of pressure people put on themselves, like I'm gonna act like I'm there, I'm gonna act like a professional shooter, I'm gonna get a jersey on, and then like these people just slowly kind of left the sport, or or whatever. Like I think like if you have an obligation to a manufacturer that's actually supporting you, absolutely have the jersey, have it on there. Um, Other than that, like I think it's a I think it's attention and money that should be put other places.
I think one of the biggest advantages of a jersey is they'll put your name on it, which really helps me because I can never remember people's names. And
Yep.
so if I can just look at you and be like, "Hey, Tom," you're helping out my poor brain. So
Yeah. Yeah. No.
just make sure your name's on it.
Yeah. Make sure you put your name on your shirt, your shooting shirt with your name, your blood type on there in case you shoot yourself in the leg with a Sig P320 or something like that. Like that'd be great. Do
Yeah,
do all that stuff. But yeah.
that was it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for all that you guys do for us. We'll keep doing this for you. We appreciate you. Go out there and go buy the cheapest Canic you can possibly find. Why not? Go get one. Go get a Staccato HD 4.5. Go the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and
You got poverty, and then you're still poverty because you probably put it on a credit card.
the only difference is probably 3% of a score from the first time you shoot it, and then it's just who's practicing after that. So
Exactly.
do all that jazz. Have fun. We love you guys. Thanks for doing that. For Robert Wyatt, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and soul as we depart into the open waters of the sea of life on a low tugboat we like to call the PARAcast.
Good night, everybody.
Nobody's here to say toot toot. Sad.
I know it's so awkward. Jeez, Jared.